Representative Pramila Jayapal drops by, the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and talks about how the road to fascism is littered with the bodies of people who decided not to speak out, essentially. Check it out, leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. On the line with us, actually, I'm going to put this on hybrid B here, Sean, and lock it down, is Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who is the co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, along with Mark Pocan, who's a regular on this show every week. Congresswoman Jayapal represents the 7th District of the state of Washington, and jayapal.house.gov is the website, and Rep Jayapal is the Twitter handle. Representative Jayapal, welcome back.
Thanks so much, Tom. It's always great to be with you.
So what are you seeing as the top issues of the day? I mean, this has been such a wild week with all the insane stuff coming out of the president. Mick Mulvaney yesterday, the testimony before the impeachment committees, this disaster in Syria where we're walking away from our allies, the Kurds. I don't know where to begin.
I feel the same way, actually. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is this incredible set of information, all pointing to corroborating that the president abused his power and the power of the White House and did it all for personal gain by asking a foreign country to interfere in our election and withholding military assistance to that country that Congress had authorized just so he could encourage interference in our elections. It is a massive abuse of power, a massive betrayal of our Constitution, our values, and our national security. Mm-hmm. But I think the other thing is I'm stunned by all of the people from Giuliani to Mick Mulvaney who essentially admit to everything publicly. Like, this is not a case where we have to ferret out information. We may have gotten the most important information right up front, and it's just being corroborated every day.
I think, Donald Trump has been doing this his entire life. He's one of those people who was born into privilege and was protected by privilege. And, like the kid with the cookie jar who says, yeah, I took them. What are you going to do about it? Whether it's his bragging to Billy Bush about how he can grab women by their private parts, or whether it's his saying he could walk out on Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and he'd still have, even more people would support him. I think he is so used to getting away with things. He probably literally has never in his life, outside of maybe a few incidents in his childhood with his family, it might be the things that got them to ship him off to military school. But outside of that, I don't think he's ever been held accountable. And I think
you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. And I think there are two scenarios for how he could have done this whole thing with Ukraine. One is that he really didn't think there was anything wrong with what he did, in which case he really should not be in the Oval Office. Right. And the other is that exactly what you said, that he's used to doing all of these things and nobody ever holds him accountable. He's incredibly arrogant about this. The so-called stable genius, he thinks that everybody's going to love what he does as long as he just says it loudly and clearly over and over again. I think he's going to find that situation does not work for him today. I was interested to see that the White House tried to roll back some of Mulvaney's statements yesterday because, listen, they are making our case for us. Yeah. And it is a sad day for the American people that this is the kind of administration that is sitting there abusing power of foreign allies. And it's not just Ukraine. You look at Syria, and you have to wonder, what does Erdogan or Putin have on him? Because when you look at what's happened in Syria and the mess that's been created, and it's not, of course, Tom, that we think, we progressives don't necessarily support having troops all over the world, but the way in which these troops were withdrawn, the way in which we threw the Kurds to the side, abandoned them, betrayed them, really, pushed them to go running back to Assad, which is really destroying all of the work that has been done over the past several years. All of this was an outrage, and then to do all of it without Congress, much less without his own team behind him.
Right, with no consultation. Well, I was talking in the half hour before you came on about, and I think so many Americans have completely forgotten this. It was just a little blip in the news when it happened, but and I don't have the news story right in front of me. I'm doing this from memory, so my dates might be off. But my recollection is this was about 6 months ago, and I think that the meeting was in Sochi. And President Putin of Russia, President Rouhani of Iran, and President Erdogan of Turkey, the three of them got together. They, you can easily find this stuff on the internet. The photo of the three of them at the end of this meeting, at the summit meeting, and what they formally called for was for the U.S. to stop helping, and I forget the exact phrase, but it was something like, regional actors who want to break away, or words to that effect, which was code for the Kurds. Right?
That's right.
Basically, they want America to stop helping the Kurds. And guess what? 6 months later, or however long it's been, it happens. Yeah, after a phone call. And I'm wondering if there was even more than one phone call. I mean, what do we do with this?
I really do believe that there probably was. Just like when we found out about Ukraine, we found out about how a lot of these calls with foreign leaders were sort of scrubbed and put into a safe. Who knows what other calls are in there? There were at least 12 calls with Putin, and in the past there have been numerous people that are on those calls. I think Trump immediately, when this Ukraine stuff started happening, he immediately started to cut down the number of people that are even there. And so there are all kinds of issues here, and I had a town hall when I was back in the district last week or the week before, and somebody stood up and said, what do we do about the fact that democracy and the idea of democracy around the world is crumbling as this president stands with these dictators from all over. And I said, look, the first thing we have to do is protect democracy here. Because if we can't make the argument that democracy here is going to work, and I will tell you, Tom, I'm afraid, sitting on the Judiciary Committee, that we are coming up against some of the limitations of our Constitution as it's crafted and of the democracy as it was envisioned. And so we have to make sure we protect that democracy and that Constitution here to show other people that it can be done and not facilitate the rise of these rogue dictators and fascists around the world.
Yeah, which raises a question. I mean, you're also a member of the House Budget Committee as well as Judiciary, if my recollection is correct.
That's right.
And it has been, I mean, Democrats have been really struggling with this, where people in the administration are telling potential witnesses who have worked for the administration or work for the administration not to testify before Congress, and they're refusing to turn over subpoenaed documents. And apparently there is some piece of some law someplace that says that basically if somebody inside the executive branch refuses to cooperate with Congress or advises others to refuse to cooperate with Congress, you can cut off their paycheck. But, I mean, we live in a world where, according to reporting over at Politico by Ken Vogel, Rush Limbaugh is getting a multi-million-dollar a year subsidy from the Heritage Foundation, as is Sean Hannity and other right-wing radio hosts. Nothing like that happening on the left, I'll tell you for sure.
Yeah.
So it seems like even if you cut off the paycheck to to somebody in the White House who's making 60 grand a year, 80 grand a year, whatever it may be these days, that some right-wing foundation or some right-wing billionaire would just step in and say, here, let me, like they paid off, and we still don't know who did it, paid off Biff's, Mr. Beerbong, our Mr. Kavanaugh. They paid off, they paid off his $200,000 worth of credit card bills. I mean, we still don't know who did that. Is there any mechanism, any leverage that can be used against these people outside of, we're going to threaten you with contempt of Congress, and by the way, that took 7 years to resolve when the Republicans, went after Eric Holder that way?
No, that's right. That's one of the things when I said we're running up against the limits of our democracy and our Constitution as it's framed, is I don't think that the framers envisioned a corrupt president with basically access to 24/7 news channels like Fox News and, all these other things, or a Republican Party that would unilaterally fear the bully in the bully pulpit and refuse to speak up for the country over the person, over their seat, really, is what it comes down to. And so we are looking now at different things. We do have an inherent power of contempt where Congress has the ability to jail people fine them. But as you said, fines will just be paid by somebody else. I'm not sure how much that's going to do, but jail people in a jail right here in Congress. But the problem with that is the last time it was used was in the 1920s, and basically what the rules say is you have to have a trial at the bar of the House. Nobody has any idea what that means. So the idea of inherent contempt, if we were to use it, has to be dramatically updated for this day and age. But short of that, Tom, it's what we are in, which is an impeachment inquiry. Our highest power really is those Article I powers of impeachment. Right. And it is, there are the road to fascism is littered with too many moments where people did not speak up or speak out. And I really do believe we're in one of those moments where we have to not allow that to be the case here. And the case for impeachment is strong.